The House Judiciary Committee approves an apparent impeachment inquiry into President Trump. The panel passed a resolution setting boundaries for an impeachment investigation, as we've reported today. And on that committee is the California Congressman Ted Lieu, who now has a challenger in the 2020 election. And joining me now is James Bradley, a veteran of the Coast Guard and Republican, challenging Ted Lieu in the 33rd District. Thanks for stopping in.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Well, I want to get your thoughts on what's being called a sweeping crackdown on homelessness as far as the state of California goes. We're going to touch on that in just a moment. But first, I want to get your thoughts on the House Judiciary Committee's efforts today. And, of course, Ted Lieu, your potential opponent, being on that committee. Is this good or bad for Republicans? Because if Democrats follow through with this 60% of Americans, according to the polls, disapprove of impeachment proceedings. So if they go through with this, is this good or is this bad for Republicans?
I think it'll be a big winning point for Republicans now. And I think Pelosi, even though we have issues with Pelosi, she's one of the most strategically placed, and she's always thinking ahead of the game, because she knows that those moderate Democratic held seats in those districts, they'll lose those if they pursue impeachment. So I think she's being very strategic about her holding back and going into an investigation more so.
And Ted Lieu, your potential opponent, is on board with this impeachment proceedings.
Yes.
I do want to ask you, Ted Lieu will be asking for re-election. He'll be campaigning for re-election in 2020, and he'll be running on what he's achieved in this last term. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great. All I can say, he's my best promoter at this point, because the last 2 years, all he's been doing is trolling our president. He's turned his back on the district, and as a result, now we have the worst crises in the state of California, in LA, and in District 33. In Venice alone, we've seen a 16% increase in homelessness. We have needles in the streets, feces, and we have public housing. And this was staggering. I still have to verify this, but 75% occupancy is with undocumented workers, as opposed to those where it's intended for, and that's the homeless. So he's turned his back on the district. I think his time is up, and I'm here to replace him.
Well, let's focus on the 33rd. That comprises of Beverly Hills, Malibu, Santa Monica. The median income at last check was right around $105,000 a year.
Yes.
Cook Political ranks it, of course, deep blue. It's a plus 16 Democrat. How do you do it? What do you say specifically to those constituents to try to flip that seat?
Well, let's look at the past 2 years. What has he done for you or everyone there? More importantly, that was a D18 prior to this last reporting period. So I really start seeing a decline in the favoritism to the Democratic Party. So really what's going to take this is addressing the problems, coming up with real salient and fiscally responsible solutions. So that's what he's been ignoring. In fact, he's been pushing. He had a town hall meeting about 2 weeks ago. And some of his constituents asked him specifically about the Green Deal. And he said there's about 4,000 of the constituents that may lose their job. And his response to that was, find other work.
Okay. Well, in jobs, as the president touts every day, jobs are on the rise. Unemployment the rate is sliding, as the president has reported. Now, homelessness, as you and I were talking about during the break, Los Angeles County has seen a 13% increase just over the last year. It's getting worse. I want to get your thoughts on what's being called this sweeping crackdown by the Trump administration. The president is expected to visit California next week to get a view of what's happening in Los Angeles County. Getting rid of homeless camps and putting them in federal housing. Your thoughts on that?
Well, at this point, we need a strong approach, and I believe that's one of the many options that are available to the president, as well as Mayor Garcetti. Mayor Garcetti has been taking heat on it. I think he's finally in a position to not go party line and really address the issues. However, I take it a little further. This is not going to be an easy task for anyone. These are encampments that are there, and they're growing. So it's going to take a little stronger approach, and I think maybe we want to consider introducing FEMA into this as a natural disaster. So
sending FEMA, having them there on the ground.
On the ground and establishing, because it's going to require a triage type comprehensive program, but it's Dr. Drew actually spoke on this quite extensively. And it's an epidemic, portions we haven't seen since the bubonic plague. So it's going to require that level of federal involvement. It may even require the president to exercise his authority.
All right, well, someone with a big hand in this is Governor Gavin Newsom of California, of course, and there's an effort underway taking place right now. It's a state-approved petition to recall Gavin Newsom. That's floating around. It's being pushed by some Republicans, some that have run for office in the past. Over 500,000 1.5 million signatures are needed for that. Now, is it as simple as what one California professor, a political scientist, said? There's a decrease in civility in politics and a rise in anti-incumbent, and that's why these recalls are happening. Is it as simple as that in the state of California?
It goes a little deeper. You have decades of Democratic control. But when you actually go deeper, you can honestly see the biggest influencers in politics today are not the politicians themselves, but the special interests. One of the biggest one is the Democratic Socialists of America. That I think everyone should dig a little deeper into that particular involvement and relationship in politics in California. They kind of control the hand in the movement of the SEIU, which stands for the Service Employees International Union. So as you peel back and go deeper, you can see the level of corruption that we've been living with for years. And more importantly, it's time we finally wake up. Truly, we're at that point.
Do you think there's a chance that 1.5 million people sign this thing?
I certainly hope so, and I think I know here, speaking of when you were saying about the petition, I wish her the greatest success in getting those signatures, and she has my full support.
Erin Cruz, a former opponent of yours. Now, illegal immigrant apprehensions went up 140% just since last year alone. I want to ask you, as you reach out to the people of the 33rd District, what do you tell them? What are you hearing from the people there? Some of them are directly affected by the crisis happening at the border. What are you telling them? How do you make them feel better about what's happening down there at the border of Mexico and California?
That's a tough one. I've been in the district for the last 2 months asking specific questions. One, homelessness and bringing jobs and new business into the district. They're concerned, but they still have that more, they call it Silicon Beach, by the way, so you have an understanding of the youth and the level of income you mentioned earlier. That's what we're dealing with. It's more of a socialist spin. However, when they feel it encroaching on their turf, they become concerned. So the border issue is a concern. They don't see that as the biggest concern. Their biggest concern is clearly the homeless situation.
Okay.
They're playing it down quite often.
And some of that ties together as far as the migration problem. Lastly, we're running out of time here. We're going to put your website up on the screen here. Tell our viewers how they can go, where they can go, and what they can
absolutely.
do.
I made it real easy. It's simply Bradley Congress, bradleycongress.com. And you can go on there, you can learn about me, about some of the issues that are facing our district, state, and country that we as citizens need to be involved in. So I truly believe that now's the time to go out there and reach out to me through that. There's an easy way to reach me. And we do have a donation page, so please go to that. It's actually called Contribution. You're contributing to the future of our state, district, and our nation. Now's the time.
All right. James Bradley, a veteran of the Coast Guard, we appreciate your service, sir. A Republican taking on potentially Ted Lieu in 2020 in the 33rd District of California. We'll see you back here, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.